Good afternoon. I would like to call to order the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners Budget Work Session for May the 24th. Welcome everybody in the house. We're happy to have everybody here. And as a reminder, if you have your cell phone, please make sure it is either on vibrate or on silent so that if it goes off during the meeting, it won't interrupt. And we are, as a reminder, we're also being broadcast live today on Channel 22, so we welcome our viewing audience from home. We have a number of areas to present to us tonight, and we are going to start off with the EDC and John Cox. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Mr. Downs, thank you for the opportunity to be here. On behalf of the Economic Development Board, I'd like to thank you for your continued funding and support of the economic development efforts of the EDC that you have a long history of doing. It was especially interesting to me during the Corning discussion, Madam Chair, when you brought the table out showing the impact on just the incentive piece alone. The impact of the county is about $10 million a year. So we feel like that's good work. And as you know, the mission of the EDC really is very simple. It's been the same mission for a long, long time. It's to create capital investment and recruit new jobs. So those are the two things that we're focused on. Although as a community, we've all looked at new ways and different ways of providing economic development services to the county, especially by looking at small business and entrepreneurs. So that's been a great exercise for all of us to do. My part of this, I think, is actually quite small. The amount of money that we have requested is the same as last year. It's $262,000. I've spent I've had a number of meetings with your county manager and the managers of Kannapolis and Concord, as well as discussions with our board. And so at this point, we're requesting that $262,000. But in talking with the managers, we've identified some other things that we would like to do that would be new projects. And so we have requested from the county an additional $50,000, and we've targeted that toward two or three things. One of those would be a youth entrepreneurial apprenticeship program. It's much like the show Shark Tank, if you've seen it. It's for 6th through 12th graders. It's a national program. It's in partnership with the U.S. Chamber, but it's a pretty big piece of work. There's a licensing fee. It's a 3-year program. And in addition to the funds that the EDC would provide, hopefully, through this request and your ability to do it, I know you have a very tight budget year, we would also be, through our chamber hat, raising additional dollars from the business community and making this project a go. In discussions with the managers, I'd also suggested that we fund a new position paid for half by the chamber and half by the EDC. And again, through council with them, we've decided to remove that, so we're not asking for additional funds for even half of a FTE. We're going to do some reassignment internally with respect to how we staff that particular program. I think you all are aware of the Small Business and Entrepreneurial Development Plan that we did a few years ago. It was Cabarrus and Rowan County specific. Today we're interested in having that study revised. A lot of things have happened economically since 2007 when the study was first done. So we would like to refresh that study and make it Cabarrus specific, so that it is focused on the communities in the county of Cabarrus as opposed to being a two-county initiative with Rowan and Cabarrus. There are other things that we plan to do with the additional dollars that we're requesting, but I think that the commitment from the two cities is to increase their funding each by $15,000, though their mayor and councils may not have approved their or adopted their budgets yet. I do know that the county's been hopeful that the cities would increase their funding. So I think at least in those cases that is a reality, and I think that meets one of your goals. So really, that's the long and the short of it. We're making the same request. We're asking if there are additional funds available up to $50,000 and the projects meet the county, their manager's approval, then that you would provide those additional dollars.
Hey, any questions?
Got a question, Mr. Cox. What we have before us is the funding request. It's on page, I have page 5 on the bottom right. Maybe it's the next page.
Yeah, thank you. May I explain that?
228.
Right.
And if we take the 26,000 out in half, that would take it to 202. So are you asking for 252?
Sorry, I gave you an extra document, and thanks for calling that to my attention. The list of 228, the EDC board directed me to, and I don't think it would be called a wish list, but to put together a list of things that we would like to have funded this year. That list totaled $228,000. A large part of that was primarily in the area of marketing. For example, we haven't had an agency relationship in 3 years. We've not done new collateral pieces. We've not done digitizing the mobile platform, so that Androids and other phones can connect seamlessly to our website. So I put this list together for the board, and then as I took it to the managers for their review, they smiled and said thanks, but in large part no thanks. The things that they are interested in are the things that I did mention, which include the Small Business Entrepreneurial Development Plan refreshing, the Youth Entrepreneurial Academy, and other things as I have mentioned.
In regards to the Small Business Entrepreneurial Development Plan above Young Entrepreneurs Academy, is the EDC board going to come up with some goals about what y'all's expectations are before you get into it? Is this something y'all are going, how do we see how well we're producing at the end of the year?
The Youth Entrepreneurial Academy comes complete. They'll give you the goals, objectives, strategies, and you follow the plan and you implement it. So that's what we'll be measuring against there. The Small Business and Entrepreneurial Development Plan will come from Market Street Services,
Okay.
revising the plan, and it will come with goals, strategies, objectives, and we'll measure against that.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions that I have.
Other questions?
Yes, comment? No, go ahead.
I want to ask you about the Young Entrepreneurs Academy. How will you find students that are interested in that, and will you partner with Cabarrus County Schools and Kannapolis City Schools to identify students?
I actually had a meeting with Pam Kane and Barry Shepard a couple weeks ago. I walked them through the program, provide the information to it. They're supportive of it, with a couple caveats. It's not the kind of thing, you don't come into the school during the school day and open up another program that students have to be shuffled into. We've asked for really the only assistance that we need from the schools is one, that they think it's a program of value, two, that through their counselors or whatever the appropriate title is, they could help us identify some students, and we would do the recruitment piece of that.
So it would be something after school that they would do?
Yes, ma'am. After or before or on weekends.
Okay. And the reason I ask that is that there is an entrepreneurial course that's taught in the high school level where they write a business plan.
And that might be a great opportunity to partner.
And DPI has a competition, if you will, called Hop on the Bus, which is an entrepreneurial plan competition that DPI already runs for students that are interested. And as a caveat, at, I believe, Hickory Ridge High School, they had a state winner in the Hop on the Bus contest.
Wow.
So it's always good to encourage students to look at their future and make plans. But I do know that there are some programs already in place that this might be a synergy with. There's FBLA and DECA, which also might be interested in that to some degree too. So
We'd like to
I see
find
Dr.
ways of
Shepard
partners.
shaking his head, so I know that he's familiar with that. Lisa Conger is the contact in Cabarrus County Schools, and sorry, I do not know who the contact would be in Kannapolis City Schools that could also help to implement that.
Great.
And the Youth Council with Workforce Development might also be interested. So.
Okay.
Just to add the 50,000 that's being requested from the county, it's not, you're showing 262 for their budget request. the 50,000 is in the budget that I presented the other night. It's under a non-departmental line item, so the bottom line would not change if you care to endorse these programs. And again, as Mr. Cox has said, we've had several meetings, both Mike Legg, Brian Hyatt, myself, with Mr. Cox and other members of the EDC board, and talked about how do we move forward with economic development and make it more broad and more outreaching and approaching in different manners. And this is what Mr. Cox came back with. We seemed to it was general consensus between the three managers that it was moving in the right direction. So we would recommend that you support this.
Okay, so like you said, that's already in your budget.
It is in the
So
number.
we're not looking to make any changes to your budget, recommended budget this time?
No, ma'am. It would just
Okay.
be a matter of moving it from that non-departmental line item over into their operating budget.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I just say to all of you again how much we appreciate your partnership in growing the economy and put people back to work. And anytime you have any questions about a local company, a company coming in, what's going on or what we're doing, we have a complete open door policy. And if you'd like to take a windshield tour of the county and kind of see it through our eyes sometimes, some of you have done that, we'd love for you to do that as well. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have the CVB, Convention and Visitors Bureau. We have Terry Crawford here, Donna Carpenter, and John Mills. And as a reminder, I know that the commissioners know this, but just as a reminder, the CVB gets their funding not from us in tax dollars, but they get their funding through the hotel occupancy tax. And what we have the responsibility to do is to approve their budget in accordance with Article 4, Room Occupancy and Tourism Development Tax. And so we will be looking at that after their presentation. There is an action requested of us tonight to approve their budget, just as a reminder. So glad to have you all here. I know you've had a really busy week so far, and you're in the middle of it, and probably need to be busy tonight somewhere else too, so
Well, we
welcome.
appreciate your time. Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow commissioners, Mr. Downs. Good afternoon. We're back again, as Ms. Poole said, and note that we're not asking you for any additional funding or anything like that, so it's always nice to be able to put a smile on your faces for a few minutes. We come bearing great news and a recovering economy. While neighboring destinations are slowly rebounding, we're once again leading the charge with a budget increase of 13% this coming fiscal year, which makes that about a $4.2 million budget for the CVB. We're very fortunate here in Cabarrus County to have a thriving tourism industry that's creating jobs, sustaining local businesses, generating local tax revenues, as well as reducing the tax burden on the local residents. And all this is done by visitors and generated by visitors who choose Cabarrus County as their destination. In front of you, you will find a jump drive. And on that jump drive, it has our fiscal year 2012-13 proposed budget, as well as a tourism impact video, a copy of our destination guide, as well as our 2020 vision plan. We hope you will take the time to look through those items and read them, and if you have any questions, to feel free to reach back out and ask us. These things, omitting the budget, were also presented to the legislature by Representative Johnson during their short session. She had the opportunity to share with them the statistics about tourism in Cabarrus County and its impact on the state, and was very excited to do so, and we were very thrilled that she reached out to us and asked us for our information to do and to present to them. So I also want to take this opportunity to share with you a couple of events that that we have hosted and will be hosting in the near future, and their impact on this community. The first one, but certainly we haven't done an actual press release, so I guess this will act as a press release this evening. The 50th Mustang celebration will be coming to Cabarrus County in 2014. We will be hosting the East Coast version of this celebration, and Las Vegas will be hosting the West Coast celebration. So very, very exciting for us. There's upwards of 50,000 people will be coming to this event. They plan on having about 10,000 Mustangs, actual cars, emerging upon the speedway. And we've estimated the economic impact to our area up to $2 million, and it could be more. That's a very conservative estimate of what we will feel from this particular event. Another one that's coming up here shortly in 2012 is the Buick Club of America. I know we spoke with you about that one when we first booked it the last time we were here. Well, it's finally coming to fruition, and we expect about 500 vintage Buicks. It will generate about 1,700 room nights, and the economic impact of that is about $900,000. Another one coming up this year is the Gold Wing Road Riders Association. They were in what's the name of the town? You remember? It's near Asheville. And for 30 years, this event was held there. And we reached out to them, invited them to come and visit us and do a site visit. And they chose to move their event here to Cabarrus County. And it will be actually held at the arena, an event center. And there will be about 1,500 people. And the economic impact of that would be about $1.5 million to the community. Something we just recently hosted in the past, and will be a yearly event that we will host in the future, is the North Carolina Half Marathon. I know some of you participated, some of you came out and witnessed the event. There was over 48 states represented there, and 1,500 people, and actually 2,500 people, I lost my place, and with an economic impact of about $1 million. We also work very closely with the research campus and hosted the international workshop on anthocyanins. I hope I said that correctly. In 2011, it was the first time this event was ever held in North America. It had about 100 participants, and the economic impact was about $400,000. And then last but certainly not least, the DNC, and we are thrilled that they're going to be coming into Cabarrus County. Our hotels are already full. We estimate the economic impact of that event to be $6 million, and we're not the host of that event. So the overflow from Mecklenburg County will be wonderful for us. I'm going to turn it over to John for a minute to talk a little bit more in depth about our budget and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, good afternoon. First thing, like Donna said, it's going to be it's been a great few years for us, the little trend that we've been on, and it's going to continue into next year with the $4.2 million budget. If you look at our revenue, again, it is mostly comprised of the occupancy tax, and one amazing stat that I like to speak to very often is that we've actually had 37 straight months with year-over-year increases, and that's amazing when you look at it, like Donna says, with the recovering economy. Tourism is just driving everything right now in Cabarrus County. It's such a strong entity, and it keeps a lot of good momentum going forward. We're actually we finished 2011 up 8.4%, and that demand actually outpaced the state and all of our nearby counties as well. If you look at our expenses, we actually break them down into three main categories: our salary expense, our administration costs, and our marketing costs. And looking at those allocations, the biggest thing we want to try to do is compare to industry standards and what do bureaus around the country, how do they allocate their costs, and we want to make sure we obviously fall within those standards and push as many dollars as we can into selling and marketing Cabarrus County. Looking at the first chart, which would be the salary and wage, most industry standards, around 40% of cost runs into salary and wage, and we're actually running at 32% next year. On the administrative cost, is around 17% as an industry standard, and we are 13%. And I can tell you our largest administrative cost is the county's retention of the 5% for their efforts for collecting the costs. So coming back to the county, just through the occupancy tax that's collected, we're right at $200,000 next year. So again, obviously, as we continue to drive the occupancy tax and the demand for the hotels, the county will see, again, administrative costs that come through for that. Marketing cost typically is around 43% of industry standards, and we're running 55%. So real quickly, again, looking at salary and wages, administration costs, our goal, hold those costs down, push as much into selling and marketing the destination. There's also another document that you have in there, which is a justification page. It's about 15 pages, actually, that get into a lot more details and exactly how we go about and allocate all of our dollars within the different markets, whether it's sports, associations, corporate markets, and in how we go about advertising and selling those different markets.
I'm on.
You're
Mr.
on.
Crawford?
Well, as chairman of the CVB, I want to assure you and make a business point that our 12-member board has reviewed this budget and approved it, and for presentation to you all tonight. But as a hotel operator and working in this community and having an asset in this community, and being a recipient of what the CVB does and what tourism in Cabarrus County means to us and to the citizens of Cabarrus County, I can assure you we are very blessed to be here. Donna and her team have taken the CVB to a level that is very professional, very well accepted, and very well understood, and her peers look up to her. So we've, in a short period of time, come a long way. And as I said, our business has come back to the point of almost to 2008 levels, which is saying a lot from coming out of the little downturn that we were in. And our business, I've always said, is a pure indicator of us coming out of an economic cycle. And we're sort of on a fast track here in Cabarrus County, so we appreciate that. Donna, we thank you.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't mention also, and it's very exciting, and the Bureau is very proud of it, and we're very well aware of it, but I don't know if everyone really understands. We have 2 large hotel properties. We have many hotel properties, but the 2 largest hotel properties here in Cabarrus County, which would be the Embassy Suite and the Great Wolf Lodge, both won top in their brand, the Embassy being the Hotel of the Year in their brand, as well as just this past week, the Great Wolf Lodge won Lodge of the Year within their brand. And that's phenomenal. That is big news and exciting news for Cabarrus County, and we should be very proud. And we certainly do embrace them and thank them for what they do for our community in destination marketing and getting the name out there, getting our name out there. And you know, it's a choice. People have a choice as to where they go on vacation and what they do to spend those leisure dollars that they earn and work very hard to earn. And obviously they are choosing to come to Cabarrus County, and we're here to welcome them with the red carpet and open arms and treat them the best they can so they can go back and tell everyone else to come back and visit. And we're here to answer any questions. And last but not least, I want to thank you all for your continued support of the Bureau as well as the tourism industry as a whole.
Questions?
Just one, pretty much. All the different categories, I know they overlap with each other, but are we seeing in the corporate travel, I know we've had a lot of shows and a lot of events, Terry, at the embassy, that in a lot of those may be state agencies or in-state groups or things like that. Are we seeing any out-of-state corporate groups now starting to come in for convention travel?
Yeah, in fact, to kind of give you an idea of how our business runs, and we're a good indicator in everything going on in the county, the association cycle that you're talking about within the state cycles around. It really goes between Wilmington, Greensboro, and us, Charlotte and us. We become the part of the us as opposed to Charlotte, and with our facility. And that's cycling back around, by the way. It's an every 2-year cycle. So that is coming back for the summer and for the fall. But the biggest impact we've seen coming up, and that's where that indicator of us coming out of a downturn shows quickly with us, and that is corporate business is coming back, absolutely. And the group side of it is coming back. Just this weekend, we're seeing some of it on incentive travel for the races, for example. That money's now out there being spent. So we're seeing a lot more of that activity. In fact, for the fall race, we're already sold out, which is very unusual. I haven't done that in 3 years, so that's good news. And that's all on the group side, by the way, the corporate incentive. But corporate America is starting to get on the road again and starting to have meetings. First thing you do is have meetings to decide where they go and travel. And we're starting to see the residual of the travel come back now, and which we call transient. But the weekday demand for that is something we haven't been used to in 2 or 3 years. I'm trying to figure it out a little bit, but how you price it and how you do those kinds of things. But it is definitely back, absolutely, coming back.
I think, you know, my hat's off to Don and her staff, because what this board may not I've learned, they've been very patient with me over the past couple of years being on the board, but one thing I've learned is that when you talk about 8% growth, 9% growth, 10% growth, what you don't realize is it's a finite amount of rooms. They got the same number of rooms this year, next year, as they had last year and the year before, so that the growth is not only in the pricing, because they're providing the conferences, but also with getting more rooms filled. So if their average occupancy is 80%, they're able to push it up to 85% to 90%, which that is amazing, is that you don't see the growth in their budget because there's more rooms coming in. You're seeing the growth because more rooms are being used more efficiently and also at a better rate. I think also that one thing that is very important is not only are we getting the conferences here, not only is the CVB and everybody's getting the conferences here, but what they're doing is when they get here, they're putting on enough, they're helping out the people well enough that there's getting spin-off. Ford didn't come here because they heard about Concord. Ford heard because there was another group that's coming in here, and that group said, you know what, we were treated in Cabarrus County better than we've ever been treated before, and they started getting the word out. So that I think that that needs to be, that's a message that needs to be told. So that those are some of the things that are very important. And one thing that I think that this board needs to be aware of is it's not just exit 49 that's being promoted. It's exit 49, it's exit 63, it's exit 60, and it's Reed Gold Mine, it's the research campus, so that more things throughout the county. Boss Grist Mill is getting promoted, so that all parts of the county are getting promoted because of tourism. And when you hear the number $6 million for the DNC, that translate, if it's $6 million, 6% of that's $360,000 that's coming back just in sales tax revenue. When you're talking about $2 million, that ends up being $120,000. So that's what the CVB is doing for the county that is helping in other ways. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say that I know what you guys do is an important aspect of the community, and I appreciate all you do. And it sounds like you have some exciting conferences and events coming up. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, this time we do need to take action.
I'll make a motion to adopt their budget or adopt their budget as presented.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the Tourism Authority's fiscal year 13 budget. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate y'all coming. Next up, we are happy to welcome Cabarrus County Schools, and we have Dr. Shepard here and Kelly Klutz, and we also want to recognize Lynn Shue, their chair, and we have Blake Kiger, vice chair, and Carolyn Carpenter, another board member. We're happy to have all of you here, and Kathy Auger, Human Resources Director. Let's see if I can remember everybody. And there are a number of other staff members around the room, so we appreciate all of you being here today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see you all again on this bright, sunny day. First off, you know, we've heard from the Visitors Bureau, we've heard from the tourism and all of that, and when you think about that, you think about reasons to bring people to Cabarrus County. Well, Cabarrus County Schools is always a good reason for people to come to Cabarrus County, because we are proud to have a top school system in the state. We're getting better, and but you know, obviously, you know, you've been real good to us in years past with our funding, and so we're looking forward to giving you our proposed budget that was approved by our board. Tonight, I have two presenters with me. I have Ms. Kelly Klutz, our Chief Financial Officer, and she'll go over our operating budget, and then we'll have Lynn Whitkey, our Facilities and Maintenance Operations Director. And so at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Klutz to start your presentation, and then we'll go from there.
I'm actually going to let Dr. Shepard start us
Oh,
off,
okay.
if you don't
Okay.
mind, please.
Well, he didn't tell me that.
I also want to give my word of thanks to you for the support that you provide our school system, the good partnership that we've had for a number of years. I want to begin tonight by bragging on our Board of Education a little bit and our finance office. As you can see on the screen there in front of you, the Association of School Business Officials International provided for our school district a certificate of excellence in financial reporting, and to my knowledge, that's the first time that that's occurred, and certainly the first time since I've been working with you. I want to congratulate our board as well as our finance department, and Kelly Klutz as our Chief Financial Officer in receiving that award. And in the next slide is a second award that we've received since we last met. The Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, awarded our finance department a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. And I bring that to your attention because I want you to know that not every district receives such awards, and the money that you give our school district is recognized by agencies that review the quality of financial reporting, and that I'm very proud of the work that our board and that our finance department is doing. I would add one other piece of information on the next slide, where we bring to you good news that for the third consecutive year, beginning in 2008 through 2011, our financial audits have shown no findings or audit exceptions, and to me that's an incredible feat, and I'm very proud of our department for that. We're good stewards of your money, and our auditors recognize that. I'm going to now ask Kelly Klutz, if she would, to review with you our request, and then she will also, in the end, recognize Kathy Auger, our Human Resource Assistant Superintendent, to give information about some things that we've learned recently that would explain why we are asking for additional funds this year. So, Ms. Klutz, if you would, please.
Okay, thank you. We think it's important that you understand how important we think the budget process is, and how much time we spent with the budget process. So we want to tell you a little bit about it. We developed and implemented and led our stakeholders through a new budget process to ensure that we had the ability to fiscally be responsible and be self-sufficient during the times of lost funds. We've lost ARA funds, we've lost job bill funds, and we've lost state funds over the last fiscal years. 2011, 2012, we've lost $6.3 million of state. Well, we've allocated $6.3 million of our budget to offset the state funds that we've lost. We've lost $7.5 million of ARA funds, and we've lost $5.6 million of jobs bill funds. And we've not had to ask the county to replace those funds, as some educational institutions have done that. We built a transparent trusting process that invited internal and external participation from stakeholders. Next, okay. We used a decision-making tool called Trio. I'm sorry, if you'll go back one slide. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. We used a decision-making tool called Trigo with our process, and our budget committee members and our leadership attended a 3-day valuable process and training. Trigo Ed is a nonprofit group, and it has 18 years of experience. They've worked with greater than 9,000 education leaders and boards, districts, and school systems. It is a thinking strategy developed by Kepner Trigo, and it's based on business practices used by Fortune 500 companies. It builds capacities and systems to use thinking strategies with other problems and challenges. Okay. And now I just want to go over some graphs and trends with you guys. This is our average daily membership, otherwise known as our student attendance, if you're not familiar with those terms. The bars depict in the green are broken into 2 levels. The green is the previous year membership, because I wanted you to see the growth in the current year. So if you look in 2006, 2007, we had 23,866 students in the previous year, and so we grew 1,715 students that year. And most of you know that a school will only hold 1,000 to 1,200 children. So if we're not building a school year, we're behind. And so if you look at the white parts of that graph, you'll see in 2007, 2008, 1,500 kids, 586 kids. In 2009, 2010, that looks like a very small number. It's 151. But if you look at other school systems around the state, that number will have decreased, not increased. But Cabarrus County schools continue to increase. The reason for that is because the kindergarten age changed, in which you could enroll in kindergarten. Again, most systems decrease. We continue to increase. Now, the economy changed in 2008, 2009, and most systems expected to decrease enrollment. We continued to increase, and we are still continuing to increase in our enrollment. So in 2012, 2013, we're still projected to increase enrollment at 662 children. Okay. So the next graph we're looking at is funding. This is our local funding. So 2008, 2009, we're approximately $43 million. This does include the facilities and operations and grounds money that you allocate to us. And then, as we're projected to have in 2012, 2013, is $46 million. And you can see on the graph there is an incline, and then it kind of tops out in the last 2 years. Go to the next graph, please. Then we're going to look at capital funding. This is non-construction funding. So 2005, 2006, and then we went up in our funding and kind of leveled off, and then back down 2009, 2010, back to a flat level as we're projected in 2012, 2013. Okay? So what we've done in this graph is we pulled it back to a per pupil basis. This is the local funding on a per pupil basis. Now, in the graph before, when we looked at just flat dollar funding, it looked like the amount inclined as the students inclined. But if you base it on a per pupil basis, you can see that it is not doing so. It inclines and then it declines because what's happening is we're not getting funded for growth. And if you look at 2012, 2013, it'll be the second year in a row that we're actually receiving a decline in funding based on a flat number that we're being funded locally, because we're not catching growth is exceeding our funding. Okay, next. Okay, now what we're doing on this graph is that we are looking at both of those numbers that I've just talked about in the same graph. We're looking at the number of children that we serve, and we're also looking at our local per pupil funding in the same graph. We would hope that those would go in the same direction, and clearly they're going in opposite directions. We're serving more children, and we're getting less funding to take care of those children. Education is clearly losing ground here. Okay, next. This graph is depicting the bars, the number of children, again, that we're serving, 2008. And the line graph is the number of adults that are taking care of those children. In 2013, you'll see the number of children is projected at 29,844. The number of adults taking care of those children, less than the number of adults that were taking care of those children back in 2008. Okay. The next two graphs, or the next two slides, are interesting information that we've known for a long time, but it's information that I think we take for granted, and it's when we put this information to our board, it was surprising the number of phone calls and emails that we got back, and people, the public did not know this. 6 out of the 8 previous years, Cabarrus County Schools was funded 114th or 115th of the LEAs from the state. Essentially, that means we are funded the least per pupil than any other school system in the state.
By the state.
By the state.
So this is not,
No.
it's implying that Cabarrus County
No.
is funding well.
No.
The implication is that
No.
Cabarrus County is funding the lowest, and actually the state is funding the lowest.
Not implying that at all, sir.
Well, it doesn't say anything about, the state funding you 115th out of 115.
Elliot. There.
It says 6 of 8 previous years, Cabarrus County Schools was funded 114 out of 115. LEAs from the state. So what I'm just saying is it doesn't say the state is funding at that level. The implication is that the county's funding at that level, at 114.
No implication at all, sir.
Okay.
And there's the data that supports what we just stated. The state back up the federal and the local and the total that you can see the data there for yourself. Okay. Now, one of the things as you're cutting budgets or adjusting budgets, a lot of people want to know is, can we cut central office? Can we cut transportation? Let's cut the areas that do not impact the students directly. And clearly that was our board's direction. And so what we wanted to do was provide data that showed you and everyone else, our public, where we are in that picture. So this is data that supports that. And the way that I like to look at this so that I can understand it is it's a ratio. And if you were a kindergarten teacher and you served 18 children, that's a class size that you can handle. If you were in a class that served 30 children, you would not be as happy with that class size. You couldn't handle that as easily. So this data is presented in that same manner. These school systems are school systems that are similar in some way, shape, or form, either region or size, to Cabarrus County schools. So we're shown on the far left as serving a 1 to approximately 70 ratio. So we're serving a large amount of students per administrator or central office staff. Now, if you look over to the far right, not picking on anyone in particular, just they're easy to depict, that's approximately 1 to 115. So it would be a whole lot easier for me as a teacher or an administrator to accommodate a class size of, or a ratio of 1 to 115 versus a 1 to 170. And that's just what we're showing you, is that we feel like our ratio, we know the data is showing you that our ratios are much higher than other systems in our area. And so another item that our board wanted to know is, so if we're looking at this budget and we're trying to approve these dollars, what do we get for our money? What are you doing well? So these are some of the items. We have the second highest graduation rate among the 10 largest school districts in the state. Middle school reading, 78%, middle school math, 85%, were the highest in the district history last year. Cabarrus County Schools has been one of the top 10 of the school student performance in U.S. history for the last 4 years. Cabarrus County Schools was one of the 5 districts in North Carolina named the annual College Board Honor Roll for increasing AP scores and student participation. Last year, AP participation increased 19%. And 13 of the 19 elementary schools have proficiency rates above 80%. And all 8th grade tested subjects in the top 25 student performance out of 115 districts in the state of North Carolina. So those are just some of the things that we're proud of, not that there aren't a lot more. So now I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Auger, and she's going to talk a little bit about our salary study.
Funding this budget proposal would enable our schools to be competitive for the best teachers and the best administrators, so all of our Cabarrus County students have the quality of education they deserve. Our current preliminary findings from Springstead, and this is the company who performed the county's previous salary studies, indicate that our teacher supplements are about 36% below the market. Our principal supplements are about 28% below market, and on the next page you can see that our assistant principal supplements are about 36% below market.
Okay. Our budget request is listed. As requested, we're requesting a flat per pupil amount, which would increase the per pupil to 1636. I'm sorry, that is not accurate. We're requesting 1636.76 per pupil, and we're requesting for the growth. So this would it would actually increase our budget to $48,847,000, which would be approximately a $2 million increase from the current budget that we have. You also have the capital budget that we're requesting an increase in that also. Okay. The next document is our facilities and grounds budget. I believe there were questions on how we spend the $8 million that you give us that's allocated specifically for facilities and grounds based on the contract that we have. And so we provided that information for you, and we went over this at one of your last meetings, just to a summary. 38.4% of that is salaries and benefits. $1.6 million of that goes to capital projects. $1.1 million of that is clearly break-fix type items. $500,000 of that is mowing, but you have the detail here for your reading pleasure. The next document is a detailed list of how we spend the capital projects. The approximately it's always an estimate until we get a final budget, but it's approximately $1.5 million of the capital projects. Above that bar are items that Mr. Whitkey has planned to take out of what I call his break-fix item. It's his operating account, but they're noteworthy to our board, so we do put them on the list. The items below the line are the items that will be taken out of the capital projects line, the $1.5 million that I just noted. And we do have the list for Kannapolis, because we are responsible for them according to the contract. Okay, and that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Commissioners, do you have questions?
I just want to ask, and maybe take a second here to go through all this, because I, this morning, and if I say something that's not right, correct me by all means, because I did this over a cup of coffee this morning. So I was looking at the DPI website, okay, and I pulled up some facts and figures, and what I did was looked at Johnston County and us, and we're, give or take $1 million here or there swapped out, we're almost identical in what we are facing. Both of us are suburban counties that had a lot of growth. But then I looked and I saw where they're funded, and what it pulled is the, I guess the initial allotment worksheet that, you can just plug in the number for the LEA and then get the figures. They had a $12 million low wealth supplemental that they received that we do not receive. And so I said, okay, let me go and dig a little bit on that, and I finally found where, kind of how it's determined. And it was amazing to me, and this is something I think that I would love to be able to elevate going into next year to the legislature, because I feel like that is based a lot on looking at the local property tax base and looking at how much the Board of Commissioners, if the higher the tax rate is set, property tax, it seems that the more you get funding from the state, because I was trying to figure out what causes us to be in that bottom tier. But I also feel like we're caught in the middle, because we've got not just that, but there's also, I guess, a small system supplemental that's paid as well. Now, I can understand, because I saw where Robeson County, for instance, gets $17 million extra dollars being low wealth, which I understand because it's the poorest county in the state. But when I look also, in fact, I think other than Union County, I think we have spent over the last 10 years more money on capital improvements and facilities, but we get absolutely no credit for, and it looks as though we're not making any effort, because we get zero credit for making any effort at all. That and I don't know whether that is something that formula was developed just internal in DPI, or is it something the legislature dictated that there would be a formula developed for that, or how that? Because I feel like in some ways we make a big deal out of all the of the Leandro decision that everybody deserves a quality public education, and yet what you're doing is that kids in counties, most children don't have an option of where they live at, just because they live in a county that, in some ways is not willing to, is working more efficiently, their government is, so they don't have to have a higher tax rate, or being penalized because they're saying, okay, well, Cabarrus County, just raise your taxes in local money. But I go back then to the 1930s when kind of the agreement was made that the state would fund operational costs of schools, the counties would do the construction and provide the facilities. I feel like in some ways is that why are those things there? I mean, should it, because the money's there, it's just that it's being we're not getting any of it, which penalizes us in a lot of ways, because now we can come up with $12 million locally, but that's about 7 cents on the tax rate. We would have to raise taxes just to put ourselves on equal footing with something like Johnston County.
I would thank you for doing that research and singing our song, because that's the story that we've been telling for quite some time, that efficiency does not result in greater funding from the state. The slide that we were talking about earlier that shows what a good job you guys are doing for us, and we've always ranked in the 30s and the 40s of 100 counties for the funding that you provide, but for the reasons that you stated, we're at the bottom of state funding, and so we're facing an uphill battle. I would say that Leandro, when we talked about that some in the past, has had some effect on that, but there's also some tiering that's done within the Department of Commerce, I believe, that results in when we apply for grants, we're viewed as a wealthy county that's not in need of the funding, where in those poor counties that you've mentioned, they are eligible. So we're doing all that we can to maximize on every dollar that we get from you and from the state as well.
But I want to notice too, on the ranking of the counties, that we're ranked with 1 being the poorest county, 100 being the richest county. Dare County is ranked 100. But of the 20, we're like 76 or something, and of the 23 counties that are richer than us, about half of those are counties like Polk County, Henderson County, Brunswick County, even Graham County was in that group, and which really surprised me. But a lot of those counties are counties that have large retirement populations, and their school populations aren't as big as ours. That's where we're going to get caught in the middle. We have a large school population, but at the same, so we don't qualify for either one of those. But it seems that a lot of the richer counties in the state are the ones that have probably a lot of higher valued property, but smaller school systems like Dare County. I mean, it's nowhere near the size of our school system. But I don't know how we would do that as far as maybe partnering with other school systems that are similar to ours that have the same issue going on, to approach the legislature about that next year, of how do you equalize that better without penalizing to be counties that are efficient and manage their affairs well and don't want to think that it's primarily a state responsibility to fund the operation of our schools.
There was an effort not too many years ago of the districts that experience high growth to join together and make an argument that as we're growing in the middle of the year, and, hundreds of students, the state funding has not increased after the first 2 months of school. So that might be one way of attacking that. But I think working through our representatives, Senator and the General Assembly, I think we can attempt to influence them and make a difference, hopefully. As I said, that's the song we've been singing, and we appreciate your joining us on the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
Other comments, questions?
On page 35, you can go back. You got a drop in 2011 to 2012, about 159 positions. How many of those were administration from the central office?
2011 to
From 2011 to 2012, you have full-time personnel. How many of those were administrative layoffs from central office?
We can get that information for you.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, it was 5.
5. Okay, and how many?
15%.
Okay, and how many teacher positions were cut?
I believe we held teaching positions flat.
Okay.
We didn't lay off any.
So the drop is 5% from central office, and then the balance of it was ancillary positions in the schools? And what I mean by ancillary is custodians, teachers' assistants, things of that nature.
Yes,
Go ahead.
and hourly cuts to certain positions. For instance,
Okay.
that was the impact of the teacher assistants.
Okay.
Reduction in hours.
Now, the $2.1 million you're asking for additionally, how many teachers are you going to hire with the $2.1 million?
We haven't made any decisions on what we'll do with any additional funds. I mean,
So how do
Well,
we?
actually, that's not accurate. We anticipate doing one phase of the salary study, and we have, there's an increase in FICA cost, there's an increase in hospitalization, and then there's that's all I can recall right off the top of my head. I'll have to get back with you on
Okay.
that.
So the $2.1 million, there's not going to be any new additional teachers to be hired?
No. And the other cost was the matching of any potential state raise
Okay.
that we have. That's what it was.
If we're going to increase, if you have projected increasing 642 students, why aren't we going to hire any new teachers?
Because we don't have the additional funds to do so.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Any other questions?
What is the average classroom size now?
Depends on which grade level configuration you're thinking.
Well, I mean, like you
Small.
talked about 18 students versus 30 students. And it would depend on the age of those students as to how many teachers it would take. You know, I know one person couldn't handle 35-year-olds. I wouldn't think. I mean, average, well, let's say middle school. How many students in the room, in classroom in middle school?
Dr. Sain's going to come and address that.
Pardon me, K through 3, the top class size is 24. 3 through, all the way up through 12, they've released the cap on class size, but they like us to keep 3 through 8 to 28, 29 when it's possible, and high school to 29, 30 when it's possible. So the only hard and fast cap is on K through 3. We probably average, in K through 3, we probably average about 22 children per classroom, with some classrooms being a high of 24, other classrooms being a little bit lower than that. And I would say our average class size for upper grades is probably between 27 and 28 students, again with some classes being at a lower rate and some classes being at a little bit higher.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to commend the school system on their budget process. I think you guys have an excellent way of planning your budget and going through. I know I've sat through some of those sessions last year, not this year, but I was very impressed with it, and I thought that was a very good way to go through your budget and really analyze every part of it.
I wanted to add also to Commissioner Meesmer's comments there. I was part of the budget committee last year and this year, and we literally put thousands and thousands of hours into this. We had representatives from all facets of the school system, and I mean, this thing was tore apart. I mean, we had a whole long list of increases, recommendations, and then a whole shorter list of decreases. But when it come down to it, though, it turned out to what you've got today. And, you know, I think that the school board, you know, between the school board and the Trago process and the finance office has done an excellent job on this, and I think this is as good a budget that I've seen that the school system's had over the years. So if you have any further questions, we'll try to address those. Otherwise, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over.
Could I ask that to address Commissioner White's questions, can you get to us your budget that shows where that extra $2.1 million, where you project that it's going to go to?
Have we not been presented with that already? I mean, I haven't seen it. I didn't know if it was been sent over to staff. Have staff seen the?
This is what they have.
No, I don't think so. But if you could just get it to Pam, then she can get it to us.
We'd be glad to get you the details on it. I think that the two areas that we want to bring attention to would be trying to match whatever state increases that we're hoping the state will make in terms of salary. And the second would be addressing the supplement issues that we presented to you in the presentation today, where we demonstrated that our employees were paid less on a local supplement than surrounding counties. So that's the big picture, but yes, we can get you the smaller details.
I forgot to say, is there's been discussed to have a 5% cut across the board in the budget, in the county budget. What would y'all be cutting at 5%? Do you have any ideas? I mean, was that discussed? Because hasn't
been discussed with us.
Okay, have y'all worked on a budget that would have a 5% cut in y'all's budget?
No.
Well, no other department has been asked to do that, so I wouldn't see the purpose of why they would do that.
Well, what I'm just concerned about is come the night we make a budget, passing the budget, that be discussed, that be brought up as it should have been a 5% cut.
Well,
so I'm just trying to figure out,
you know,
if the schools have been proactive in at least looking at it to see what that means, so that we as commissioners would know how draconian that cut may be and how that would actually be cutting staff. So I just thought it would be good for us to have an idea about what that means to this agency that we're funding.
You know, what's been interesting throughout this budget process is during our retreat, you know, we were asked to give directive to the staff of what we wanted. And so we did that a little. And, you know, it's funny, there's been no other proposals other than my 5% cut to address the shortfall we had. And certainly that's not been the most popular, and it's not been what majority wants, but it's been one proposal, and there's been no other.
I disagree with that. If that's your memory, that's fine.
I haven't heard any other proposals.
Okay. One other thing I missed is on the capital projects. I'm looking at page 44. Can you go to that? And it's very small, but there are some requests for capital projects to A.T. Allen Elementary. I'm assuming that's the new school that just opened up 12 to 18 months ago. Install additional exterior lighting, build freestanding bookcase, install water faucet and electrical outlet.
Mr. Whitkey.
Is that the new A.T. Allen that we're talking about? I'm assuming. It is? Was that not part of the construction, design, and planning?
Right, yeah, these are under our facilities group items. In certain cases, one of those items was directed to be done because of a recent, I believe it was a fire inspection, and that was a citation by the fire inspector. Some of the other things are driven by the development of some of the outdoor spaces. The school is attempting to create an outdoor classroom environment, and so we're looking to provide water to that location for them. Things that as the staff became used to the building and in developing programs around the building itself, there are things that they would like to see done so that could increase the opportunities for the children.
Also, you have install correct locks on exterior doors.
Yes, sir.
How did that pass inspection or design? I mean, if the correct locks are not put on exterior doors, I mean, that's a brand new school.
Right. What we found was after occupancy that there's a problem with some of the exterior lock mechanisms. We have not resolved that issue with the installing contractor yet, but we've put this in here because we feel it is a safety issue that we need to address, and we still will take that up with the contractor in hand.
So if we were to fund that, would we get that money back? I mean, shouldn't that be the contractor's responsibility?
At this point, it may be the contractor's responsibility, it may be the lock manufacturer's responsibility. We have not decided, we have not figured out exactly who is responsible yet, and we will pursue those funds from the proper individual or group.
Well, how would that be the county's responsibility?
It isn't in terms of the retrieval of the funds, but it is in terms of addressing the safety issue at the time.
Well, I understand. Well, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Commissioners, thank you very much. Don't get up yet, though. Or maybe Mr. Wiki. Can we go ahead and do 8 and 9, which deals with Cabarrus County Schools, because they have a large contingency, and I'm sure that if we could go ahead and take care of that, they would all be pleased to move on.
What page is 8 and 9?
Hang on a second. Page 91
Okay.
is the first item. These are, Mr. Whitkey, thank you. Just make sure you came up.
Sure.
Page 91 in your document, we deferred this, or we moved this from Monday's meeting to make sure all of us were in attendance. QSCB funding reallocation request of $801,483 from various projects to help fund the Northwest Cabarrus High School Gymnasium, Central Cabarrus High School Chiller Project, and Central Cabarrus High School office renovation projects. And they would need a motion to allow them to move the funds. And I would ask, I think we've gone over this before, so I would just open it up for questions at this time from commissioners of Mr. Whitkey or Dr. Shepherd concerning this request on theirs.
Could you tell me, whenever the school board decided to move some of the projects around, what was the vote tally? Was it a unanimous board?
I wouldn't remember, because this has been an ongoing thing,
When it-
so.
okay.
Yeah, so.
For the gym project? Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted.
I feel most sure it was, because it's a project that we feel very strongly about. We feel like it has to be done, and we've tried everything that we know, put different scenarios together with the architects, and we came up with what we felt like was the absolute best we could do. And of course, the funding required us to juggle some things around, and that's of course what we're asking you guys to approve. And I wanted to say this also, and Mr. Whitkey may mention this, that with the additional funding that we're having to reallocate with the QSCB monies, it's going to cost the other schools work that needs to be done as well. However, there are projects that we're still working on that some have been bidded, and I don't know if there's any left to be bid, but there's going to be excess funds there, and we know about that for sure, and we're hoping to add back those projects that we had to take off to get the funding for the Northwest Gym. Mr. Whitkey can probably elaborate on that a little bit more as he goes.
Ms. Honeycutt, can you put this document up? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that works. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's on page 92. That's on page 93.
That document is not, no, it was just created. What I hope that Jonathan can find is I'll just direct you quickly, Jonathan. It's listed under CCS docs.
While he's looking for that, just one question, I guess, is that the two items, the first one is to move monies from other schools into the project, and then a second request is to move money from within the school projects themselves over. So it's two different, that's the reason for two different requests. Okay.
Yes, thank you. And then under, it's the gym, not photos, the gym docs, sorry. Thank you. If you'll pull up the, boy, that's hard to see. I'm looking for one that says residual funds.
The one to the right.
Yes, thank you. This is a document that basically shows, excuse me, basically shows the dollars that have in effect fallen out of existing projects. The first group is projects that are now complete, and there's approximately $212,000 that are residual funds from those projects that are unassigned. The next group of projects are projects that are in construction, recently bid in construction, and we have an outstanding balance of $191,000 that are also unassigned at this time. So roughly $403,000 of monies that are not committed at this point to projects. The deferred projects are below that list, below at that next list, I should say, and those are some of the projects that we have monies left in projects that we have already moved the monies, some of the monies, to other projects under construction currently. And those dollars are residual. I guess all we were trying to do by showing you this is indicate much what Chairman Lynn had to say, is that these dollars are going to continue to come out of projects. It's natural for monies to be tied up in construction, and when they are complete, there's usually some residual dollars available. And so we're simply saying, as that continues to go, we will use those monies to go back and fund the projects that we have put on hold or deferred, as I mentioned earlier in the week, to the commissioners. It's our intention to spend all of the stimulus dollars as we were directed to do. We want to fund as many of the projects as we possibly can, and we will continue to do that with your support.
Additional questions?
You think you're going to have $1.3 million out of that to cover what you're spending on this gymnasium?
I don't think that we'll honestly get that far. I think that some dollars will be required from some of the other projects to do
the problem I have is I thought that these chillers and the air conditioning units and all that stuff were at the end of life. And if we put it off, you know, where are we going to get the funds to fix that stuff if it goes out?
I mean, currently what we've been doing,
I mean, you talked about using baling wire and fixing things up and all that kind of stuff. Every time you do that, though, it costs you more money when you do that in the long run. You let maintenance go, it's going to cost you more. And that don't make sense to me at all, especially after the school that's been built in the county over the last few years. I don't know why we'd let maintenance go on. What would it take to bring the schools up to get maintenance done on all the schools? You got any idea what the cost would be?
There's a couple of different numbers. I mean, the one number that we've shown recently in our capital projects, that's sort of to get us to where things are sort of even at this point in time, and that was $180-some million.
That included new schools.
That did include new schools, yes. So
I'm talking about just maintenance itself, not talking about building schools and all that. I'm just talking about maintenance.
Yeah, we can certainly sort that all out and get that information to you, Commissioner Burrage. It's a substantial number, and I guess the other part of that is that would just get us to sort of what I would call even. It doesn't. Eventually, what you hope to do is be doing preventative maintenance so you avoid some of these problems.
But I mean, if it's let go, if it's $100 million today, 3 years down the road, it's going to be $150 million.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it will grow. There's no doubt. I think the difficulty that we're caught up with now is that these projects were approved projects. You know, your commission and our board approved them. The DPI and the federal government gave us the money to do them, and we're trying to get them accomplished as best we can. The delays have cost us from the standpoint of we've incurred additional code upgrades in the project. That has impacted this particular project we're talking about. And I can't deny that some of the things that we would like to do are probably not going to get done. But I'm hoping to minimize those as much as possible, and that's you know, obvious. I mean, we're all trying to do as much as we can, given the money we have. But what we don't want to do is lose money. And my problem with slowing the project down, not getting it bid on time, we have to get this project bid and under construction by the end of the year. Otherwise, we potentially would not complete it by the April 2014 date. And if that happens, the money will disappear.
Other questions?
What's the time frame that y'all are going to be the school board's going to be asking the county to replace Mount Pleasant Middle School?
Yeah, it is in the 5-year plan.
It's in the 5-year plan. This was already on the table at one time before Commissioner White. It might have been before you came on the board.
So it's on the 5-year plan to replace
Yes,
Mount
it is.
Pleasant
Actually,
Middle School?
Yeah, actually, the Mount Pleasant Middle School was supposed to open 2013. That was on the previous 5-year plan, but because of the economic downturn, things changed. Obviously, things changed. And so, but it is on the 5-year plan, and there's also an elementary school in the northwest area that's included in that money that Mr. Wicke was talking about, the 178, somewhere out there.
$178 million.
Yeah, somewhere there about. It's the land and, you know, all of those different things that compose that number. But I wanted to mention just for a second, if I can, I hope that answered your question, Commissioner White, but Mr.
Yes, sir.
Burrage, you know, you was talking about the maintenance, and I know that's an issue that I think this mic might have went dead. But anyway, that was an issue that you and I have talked about before in the past, is the maintenance. And you're exactly right. If it's $100 million today, it may be $110 million next year, on and on and on and on. And that was the purpose of our joint meeting we had a couple of weeks ago, was to address a master plan to bring that number down instead of letting that number keep going up. And so that's what we are hoping that we'll be able to do, is start that process sometime in the very near future to get a master plan developed that will not only fix what we've got wrong now, but on an ongoing basis. And at some point, I doubt there'll ever be a time that Cabarrus County Schools will be having no needs. When you've got the many buildings that we have, $1 billion worth of assets there, you know, it's hard to work with the tight budget that we've had, 0.8% with a $1 billion amount of assets. I mean, anybody that has investments, you know, you realize that you have to keep those investments up. They go down if you don't. And that's the same with Cabarrus County Schools. Cabarrus County Schools is one of the biggest assets that this county has. It's a big draw. And, you know, and our greatest assets are children. We got 29,000 plus children and growing. And the need has to be met. And our school system has been flat funded and has been reduced by the state for several years. This past year, fortunately, because of stimulus money that the Board of Education had put back, we didn't have to take any cuts this year from the state. Is that not right, Ms. Klutz? See, and because that was prudence on the board's part to make sure that we took care of that. And then when we did the Trago process, that just really put the icing on the cake to make sure that we were being very prudent with taxpayers' money, keeping in mind, you know, that we've also got to do what our job is, and that there is to meet the needs of the students of Cabarrus County, to give them the best education they can get for the dollar. And our people are continually asked to do more for less, continually. And, you know, me as the chairman of our board, and I know that I've got the board's support behind me on this, is that we're doing a lot more with less, and we're asking that the commission will help us do more with more, and that's what we're asking for you today. And so, and I think that our request is very reasonable considering the need. And but anyway, there it is. You have it, and I'm glad it's your decision and not mine.
Well, I think we also have to consider that the taxpayer out there are all getting by on less with the economy like it is, and the money is just not there, and you can't squeeze but so much out of the taxpayers, and I think that's where our problem is with the economy like it is. They can't afford it.
Any other questions concerning item number 8?
You know, I'm looking at it, and I think it just jumps out at me, is that $406,000 for that children. I look at it and go, okay, you know, I've got bills that I have lined up and know when I'm going to try to pay those bills, and the small ones I can knock them out, you know, pretty quick. But if some I have to like stick money back for 3 or 4 months to get that money built up to pay those things, and I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, what we're faced with is kind of 2 courses. One of them is to reallocate money over, you know, and that $400,000, take it away from putting children in Mount Pleasant Middle School and put it into the Northwest Cabarrus gym. If we do that, I'm looking at, okay, if we build the gym, we don't replace the chiller. Okay, we'll have a new gym. It'll be ADA specs. We'll be able to do wrestling again in that gym. But if the chiller goes out, then have we started buying box fans to put in rooms for that school to keep the classrooms cool? Because the money will be gone for that, you know. And then on the other hand, though, if we replace the chiller, keep going forward with the chiller, we don't do the gym, then we've got wrestlers that are wrestling at the middle school. We have, the gym doesn't meet ADA. It's not completely safe, but it was not, you know, when we first did the SCUS cabs, it was not even really on the radar screen at that point in time. That's what I'm torn about, because I'm looking at it, there's no new money. If they're moving money around, yeah, but what do we, I mean, I may not even be on the board when it happens, but, you know, one day I'll look in the paper and there'll be requests coming back, we now to replace the chiller at Mount Pleasant Middle School, and we need to allocate money to do that. So that's where I'm torn at on it, because I don't have I mean, I would not have a problem shifting, but I just keep seeing that number pop up for that chiller at Mount Pleasant Middle School. We're gonna make a decision and look at balancing those two. You see where I'm balancing those two, and if you can meet the needs at Northwest Cabarrus without the gym, but it's going to be very difficult and put the kids really in a hurt if you lose a chiller. I guess that's...
Respond, Mr. Carruth, by saying that, first of all, I came into the picture after the requests were put in. From my perspective, as I look at things, I look at it from more of a master planning standpoint. I would not have put that project in. End of life is correct. It's at end of life simply because of its age. Is it at end of life in terms of being worse than any other project, any other chiller we have? No. Can we maintain it for 2 to 3 years before we build another school? I believe we can. Can something happen? Trust me, I have something happen every day of my life coming to work every morning. So it's not unusual for us to face unusual circumstances. We have a terrific group of people that maintain our facilities and maintain this equipment. If it's repairable or if we can keep it running for a few more years, we have the people that can do that. I can't say that it's not a gamble or that it is. All I'm saying is that because something is at end of life, which is sort of how these things got put into the mix, was we looked at the oldest equipment and said, this is approaching end of life. There's nothing wrong with that theory, with the exception that we were going to replace the building eventually. And that's why I have an objection to it being on the list, and why I've actually proposed it to be deferred, because I continue to say I'd rather put, even if it's a few $1,000s a year, in maintaining parts and pieces of that chiller until we build a new facility and replace it. That's clearly what the goal of our efforts as a group of people should be, and let us spend the money on a project that is important, is necessary, and needs to get done now.
If we were to transfer money but leave that there and just wait on, do we have enough money in the other remaining contracts that are sitting out, or the other projects that are sitting out there to collect that? Or is there enough left over to not have to use that money for the chillers, what I'm saying? Or do you reprioritize, and as that money comes in, if it comes in, those other projects come in under budget, do you move that money then into the chiller so that you've got that, at least they gotta have that covered? But, and then I guess that question comes in, you said 2014 that has to be finished?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So we cannot, it's not like the contract's been let, or it's under construction, or it's 50% completed. It has to be finished by 2014.
Finished, and the contractor has to have the check in his hand. Has to be absolutely complete.
What time in 2014?
April.
April 2014, that money must be expended, period. That will be the quote from the bond council.
So
it
you've
will
got to
be
build the
expended,
gym.
period.
You got to build the gym in between now.
That account has to be zeroed out.
So the clock's ticking. How long is it going to take? I mean, what is the absolutely drop dead date that we vote on it and you run out and you call the guy on the telephone, he's there the next morning, you know, with his truck?
Well, we're saying, you know, it's currently in schematic design. It's been submitted for schematic design review. We anticipate that we'll be able to complete the document sometime in the fall and have it out to bid during that period. We anticipate contracts and construction to start in December or early January of next year. With that scenario, it leaves us 16 months to complete the work. It's a very difficult project, and we believe it'll take every bit of that amount of time to complete the work. So we're up against it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Two things. The funding is one thing, but then the time constraints is another. And every day that we're not making a decision on this, it's just pushing us further to that April 14th, 2014, to get it done.
What happens if you're, say, 80% complete April 2014, and we've already allocated the money for that QSCAB, and we end up losing all that money? Then we're, you know, I guess I'm thinking all the things that make you lay awake
We don't
at
want to
night.
think about that.
Okay.
Other comments, questions?
Yeah, I would just like to say, you know, I want all of us to remember that the school board is an elected body within our community, and this is a priority that they have set, and if this passed unanimously by the school board, then I certainly think, you know, with a full board that would vote for this, then, you know, I feel confident that it's a good project if, you know, if the school board, you know, voted unanimously. I certainly would support their decision, so.
Okay, so we have before us, there's two different items that we are requested to take action on. The first one is moving funds from projects that are not at Northwest Cabarrus High School, and the other one is moving funds to projects that were slated to be at Northwest Cabarrus High School. So if there are no other comments at this time, I would like to accept a motion concerning item number 8, which is moving reallocation request of $801,483.
I move that we approve their request.
Okay, I have a motion to approve their request. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2. Next, we have item number 9, which is the other funding request, and this is to move the funds that were slated for projects at Northwest Cabarrus High School. At this time, do I have a motion to approve or deny the request to reallocate $466,420 of the QSCB funds for Northwest Cabarrus High School?
I move to approve the request.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
It concerns me that this one, as well as the last one, we're affecting the Mount Pleasant Middle School children quality of education. We're not putting money into the classrooms. We're not doing anything to help the classrooms in regards to that. And I think in doing that, and I think it's self-evident that there's a request for an additional $2.1 million from us without adding any additional teachers to help reduce class sizes. I think that's a mistake.
But we will be able to wrestle at the Northwest Gym.
Exactly.
Okay, I have any other comments? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2. Okay, next we have, thank you all very much. Next we have Kannapolis City Schools, and we're happy to welcome Dr. Kane, Mr. Crabtree, and School Board Chair Danita Rickard. Thank you all for coming. I'm also going to make a suggestion after Kannapolis City Schools, if we can then take our break, a short break, before we continue with Rowan Cabarrus and the other action item that we have for today. So,
thank you for having us.
thank you. We welcome you all. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson Poole and members of the Commission. M.H. McKee says, and I quote, "A true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others." As they said, I am Pam Kane, Kannapolis City Schools, and I've been here for 2 years now. It's going quickly. Danita Rickard has been 22 years, and Will Crabtree, this is not an unlucky number, but 13 years. So we come to you this evening thanking you for the support of Kannapolis City Schools. We truly understand. All you have to do is listen to what you just were going through. We understand the difficult time. We understand the tough times not only in our school districts with doing less, but you as a commission. You've worked many times to meet the needs of our student. You've supported our staff, and you've supported our community. So tonight we come to you, bringing to you a very thoughtful budget request and giving you our priorities. So with that being said, I'm going to ask Will Crabtree to present our budget, and then we'll certainly take any questions along the way or afterwards as you ask us why we're doing and asking for these things.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the county commissioners for all the support that we've received over the last few years. I know it's been a tough period of time for everybody, and I can't thank you enough for everything that you've provided for us and done for us, even though it's not been easy to do on your part, and I just want to know that we appreciate that. I'm going to step through our budget request. It's pretty straightforward, kind of the same thing I do every year. Just list the board and the superintendent, and will point out the pictures that we use. Those are our students, and we're very proud of those students, and we like to showcase them in everything we can do, and those are Forest Park students right there. But I'll start off with capital outlay, and what we did this year was break capital outlay down into different categories so we could really focus in on what we're requesting, and I actually have two technology categories, the first one being instructional technology and the second one being infrastructure. And at this time I want to point out that we have worked hand in hand with the Cabarrus County technology staff, government staff, on developing this, and they have looked over it and have given it their blessing. And I just want to point out also at this time that that's been a great partnership. We've have gotten so much from them. They've been a great help. Saved us a lot of money.
About how much money has it saved?
I would say in the short time, 60 to 70,000 at least.
Okay. And we've asked to try and partner with the schools, the Cabarrus County school system. Has that happened?
They are on our backup redundancy system downstairs in the basement, and I know they are talking about some other projects.
Okay. Thank you. I'm
there
sorry.
There was originally 3 projects identified in the agreement. 1 is complete, and the other 2 are in progress.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll step through the first part I'm going to talk about is instructional technology, and have it by school, and we have 20 laptops. Well, I won't go through the whole spiel, but we have laptops, desktop computers, iPads for various schools. The first page over to the second page, smart boards at our intermediate school, more iPads, desktop computers, network printers, iPads, and laptops for a total of $293,850. One thing that we're hoping to do, and it's kind of the next step in our project with the county, is to go to virtualization of our desktop computers. And what that will allow us to do is get a lot more life out of them. I won't go into the whole process because I really don't know myself, and I'd probably mess something up if I tried to explain it. But we're really excited and happy about that because I think that's going to allow us to take the new equipment that we can get and get a lot more life than we've been used to. Next is infrastructure. The Aruba maintenance agreement is our wireless network agreement. The switches are things that are used within the infrastructure that Cabarrus County is helping us with, along with the UPS, and the Microsoft licenses are for our upgrade to Microsoft Windows 8, whatever the next one is going to be, because they're going to stop servicing XP in next year sometime, I believe. So we're going to have to upgrade to get away from that. So that was a total cost of $281,800. Next is furniture, and we don't have a lot of furniture needs. We've been working on that over the years and have kept up with that pretty good, but at Kannapolis Intermediate School we do need about 4 classrooms worth of furniture, and you'll see that reflected there, and 13 kitchen sets for McKnight, and those are the play kitchen sets that the pre-K kids use to learn. So total of $34,750. Equipment, 4 steam cleaners, that's custodial equipment at $10,000, and a radio system at Shady Brook, $1,300 for $11,300. Vehicles, 3 driver's ed cars. Our driver's ed cars have come to needing to be replaced. and 2 yellow buses. We did make the deal last year to get the 2 yellow buses with Cabarrus County, and that's worked out well. We've just experienced more ridership than we can handle, so we're really needing a couple more, especially at the intermediate and middle school levels.
If I remember correctly, the county buys new buses, but the state replaces the new buses once they wear out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. As of right now?
As of right now, yeah.
And they keep up in the mileage.
They
You up
used
to
to
what,
put fuel in them
400,000
years
miles
ago.
now, or do you know?
They keep, I was wanting to say it was somewhere around 3, but I may be
300,
wrong.
Maybe 300,000. They keep up in the mileage where they're going to replace it too, which delays their cost.
And they keep up in the price too, so, remember when I first started, they were 70,000, now they're 90-some thousand a piece.
Do you
so.
tier your buses so that buses run multiple routes in the morning and the afternoon?
We do. We have 3 tiers. Our first tier is middle school and intermediate combined. That takes all of our buses. And our second tier is our elementary schools, and that takes all of our buses. And our third tier is our high school and our alternative learning center and our early college. And that does not take all of our buses, but
Now,
we'll do that.
I would assume you also get to piggyback, because we've had that, the county has piggybacked on buying a dump truck or buying a front-end loader. Y'all get to piggyback as well, right?
Yeah, there's a state contract on the buses that's negotiated through the state, and I assume that's what you're talking about, yeah.
No, what I'm saying is that like one county buys a dump truck at $50,000 and we need one, we can use their $50,000 to buy that dump truck if that's the best price possible.
We really don't, the state doesn't use that.
Okay.
They go out and bid it themselves, and you can choose to go somewhere else if you can find a better price, but usually you can't. It's usually a negotiated price that is pretty hard to beat, so.
Thank you.
That's $240,000 for vehicles. Gives us a total through the categories of $861,700. I will point out that $821,700 of that could be considered or would be considered as somewhat of a one-time request. Now, the technology will eventually die and have to be replaced, so, but for the time being, it could be considered a one-time request. We'll move on to current expense and have a couple categories in current expense, and first I'll deal with is continuation. And before I get into current expense and walk through our needs, I just want to stress those. That's exactly what this is we want to tell you our needs, because this is going to add up. So I don't want to come here and have y'all thinking that I'm asking for this much money from local. I'm not. We will use state funding, federal funding, local funding, every part of funding we can get to make this happen. So, but we felt it was very important to present our needs as a system so the county will understand. So, increase in retirement rate is scheduled to go up, and increase in insurance rate is scheduled to go up. One of the things that we don't have on here, because I just was not sure, would be a possible salary increase on the state side. We would have to match it on the local side, but that's a fluid right now. Nobody knows if that's going to happen or not. So, and I think it would be minimal on our local side. Next, I want to go to expansion, and these are things that we would like to do to help expand our instructional programs. They're not in any kind of order. They're just a list of our needs, and I will walk through those. A dance teacher at A.L. Brown High School, with the help of Cabarrus County through the issuance of the COPS, we were able to renovate our old vocational building and renovate that into an arts building. And because of that, we were able to add a lot of arts classes, one of them being dance, and we would need an instructor to fill that. 4 guidance counselors at various schools. These would be positions that we would be bringing back that we lost due to funding a couple years ago. Full-time bus drivers system-wide, we have noticed that it's been a real struggle. We currently use teacher assistants as part-time bus drivers also. So they're losing about half of their time in the classrooms to having to drive a bus. It's been a real struggle at the school, so we would like to move to a full-time bus driver situation where all of our bus drivers are full-time,
and we could supplement that time with some help as far as custodial work at schools and child nutrition, things like that. 10.1 teachers, and 2 of those are at Kannapolis Intermediate School, art, which was lost due to funding, and a core teacher, which we need for increased enrollment. 1 at Forest Park, which is a kindergarten teacher, which we need for increased enrollment. 2 at Kannapolis Intermediate School in 5th grade that we need for increased enrollment. 3 at A.L. Brown, 1 of them being a CTE, Career Technology Education teacher, a Spanish teacher, and a math teacher. And the Spanish teacher was lost due to funding. It would be a replacement in math, and CTE would be new. Exceptional children's teachers, 1 being a pre-K, 0.6 being a pre-K teacher, and 1 being an autistic teacher at our Kannapolis Intermediate School. We have a large number of autistic kids moving up into our intermediate school level next year. And then 2.5 technology facilitators and 1 media specialist. All 3.5 of those positions were lost due to funding, so we'd like to try to add those back in. Then local support of our Head Start. We are one of the handful of systems in North Carolina, public school systems, that also operate a Head Start. A lot of them are operated off of community action groups. So we have typically not in the past had much local support, but as we did a survey around the state looking at other school systems who do operate a Head Start, most of them have local support built in. So we would like to start at least trying to provide a little local support to them to help with their ongoing costs. So that total expansion would be $1,418,147. Like I said, these are our needs as a whole. We will use any kind of funding source we can to try to fill them. We would hope to fill them this year, but if we can't, we'll work on it next year. So I just wanted to present that to the board, see if they had any questions on our funding request. Once again, thank you for your support of us, and turn it over there.
Questions?
So I want to make certain I'm right. You're asking for an additional $1.4 million over from last year.
Incurring expense, we're technically not asking for the 1.4. We're going to have to use it across sources of funding. So I'm not asking one particular source to fund it all. So.
But if we cut more from the state, there'll be less money from that source. We'll just have to see about the discretionary cuts. We don't know.
Well, what's frustrating from my perspective, I'm not speaking for anybody else, from my perspective, is that the state continues to affect, cut, reduce funding to the school systems, Kannapolis and Cabarrus County school systems, and they're not responsive. The federal government's not responsive. So the only people you have to seek redress from is us. True. You know, we're the only ones that are listening.
You got that right.
And that's the thing that's frustrating is I think what I took from the Cabarrus County school system is they're also getting cut from the state, and they're asking for the county to make up the difference for what the cuts are from the state. And that's frustrating from my perspective.
I can tell you it's frustrating from my perspective too, is this is the only time I'm able to get in front of actual people to talk about my budget request. We don't go to Washington. We don't go to Raleigh to present a budget. So I appreciate you all taking the time to listen to us. And I know it seems like sometimes that we're looking to you all to make up for the loss of everything else, but you're the only ones we really get to talk to. So I don't want it to seem that way. It's just that that's the way it is.
Well, that's what
plus it's your children that we serve, and it puts a face on it for you.
Right.
I would hope. And it bothers me that we had to list this as an expansion budget this year because it's really a recuperation budget, because almost all of these positions, all the guidance counselors, technology, all of that was lost because of budget cuts over the last 2 years. And we were fortunate to be able to rehire some of the assistants and some folks for different reasons. But we did. We took a big hit. And we had cut for years central office and every other place we could find to cut. And we were left with personnel since that's the bulk of our budget, particularly local.
And that, the cause of those cuts is once again from the state?
From the state, you're
Okay.
right.
That's what I was going to point out. It was not a local.
Yeah.
Our capital
It was
is
not.
different.
Yeah, capital was another
Right.
story, but current
Yeah.
expense
Thank
was not because of local.
And I guess, you know, I share what Commissioner White said, y'all heard me, a little diatribe I had a while ago about the funding. And I don't know, is it, and I get philosophical, and I should have done it too when Cabarrus County schools were here, but are we, and I don't, you don't have to answer this, it's a very rhetorical question. You know, public education in this country has been, you know, basically broad public education has been something that's been a part of our nation for the last, what, 125, 130 years. Are we reaching the point where it's the current way we do it is just going to become unsustainable? Because we're just, you know, there's so many competing things out there. And like you said, the way the state cuts back the funds, and this seems to be that, you know, we're with the cost of, you know, we find ourselves cutting, but where we're cutting at is in with the classrooms, or we're, you know, I guess, is there, we got to look long-term at some new way that we do education.
It doesn't become unsustainable
Yeah.
because
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Dr.
saying,
Kane can
is
speak to
that-
this better than I.
Yeah.
But children are defenseless, and public education serves every child that
Well-
comes to our door. I don't care what color they are, or how able
Yeah.
they are, or how rich their parents are. We serve them because that's our obligation and our duty. And private schools and charter schools don't have to take everybody. They don't have to take autistic children if they don't want to. They don't have to provide so many things, and we all know that. And I know you feel like you guys are the last resort, and we hate to come here and say, this is it. But, as Mr. Crabtree said, this is our need. We're putting it out there. If we don't ask for it, we sure won't get it. So, here you are.
Let clarify, I mean, I don't want to.
I'm not arguing with you, Bob. I understand.
I was, because I mean,
I agree with you to a
my wife was in one of the first Head Start years.
Right.
Head Start got started back in the 60s. She went to Head Start. I went through 12 years of public schools, went through a public community college, went to a public, you know, university. Same thing with my wife. And so that's the great equalizer in our country. That's what I'm saying, is that we've got to look at how do we make it work, and continue to make it work.
If we could make the
Yeah.
decisions, I
Mhm.
think we could make it
Mhm.
work.
Mhm. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not our call.
Okay.
Commissioner Meismer or Burrage? Okay, can you go to page 67, please? See, I think you missed that one real quick. I'm not real certain why.
What, the Citadel? The guy going to the Citadel?
I don't
or-
know. I just thought-
She likes
yeah,
the one on the
guy
left,
at
I know.
Citadel.
I mean,
That's what drew my attention
Where's the
to it.
red hat at?
Was well, they're both the right color blue, so.
Well, the concern I have is
you
that
know, I'm
Kannapolis
okay.
did such a great job academically with the young man on the left. What's going to happen when he goes to Carolina overall? Is it going to go
He'll be
down?
set up fine. He actually has a Cabarrus County Schools football player that'll be on the team with him, so, you know, that's a good thing. But, I just noticed that you went through that real quickly, and you know, I didn't think it was on purpose, but I thought that we should point that out, because you included it, and.
We're very proud of those two young men.
And we should be proud of them. Well, we should be. They've worked hard.
They're good
Well,
students, too.
I wanted to ask. go
Before
ahead,
we
I'm sorry.
leave that one thing, is yes, we should be very proud of them, but I know that there are other students that are getting academic scholarships.
Oh, yeah.
That unfortunately, they never get their pictures in the paper.
Correct.
Well,
You
that's
know,
true.
and those are the young men and women that should get just as well as applauded. And I'm not saying they aren't within the school system, but as a community, they don't get their letter of intent signed, they don't get their picture in the paper, and that's unfortunate, because.
We had one young lady at awards night last week that received a Levine Scholarship to UNCC, which is the equivalent of a Moorhead or a Park
Yeah.
Scholarship at state, and quite a few others with full rides. But
we'll try to work their pictures in next year.
Well, I'm just.
We had to get this before their pictures came.
Unfortunately, there's a tremendous number of children at Cabarrus County school systems that get, full rides. There's one young man at Robinson's getting a full ride to Howard University on a Marine scholarship that's worth a tremendous amount of money, that he's not getting pictured in the paper. But just because we don't see them doesn't mean they're not there.
It's true.
I'd like to also add that I think your question is a good one, but you don't want to get me started on that. None of you do. But I think one of the things you'll see is that something that we've talked a lot about is the arts. And the fact that we're asking for that dance and that we've built that dance studio, because I think in order for us to continue to do what we need to do in public school, we have to really look at that. And I know you look at China, and I've been to China, and one of the things that they really do is the arts, and I think also the thing that we're looking at, it's not in here, but it's wellness. And that's very important to us.
I had a couple questions and a comment. I want to tell you thank you very much for your detail, because I appreciate the fact that you've come in and said this is what we need, because we do need to know that. We need to know specifically what are the things that you're looking for. And so I appreciate the fact that you've given us this great level of detail. The question I have is about your capital outlay amount. You mentioned $821,700 of capital outlay that would be one-time money versus the continuing money. And I know that in our Monday meeting, you were talking about the QSCB for you, and I could be wrong on my number, but it seems to me like it was about $400,000 that you don't have to finish those last couple projects. So if we had one-time money, what is more necessary, or if you were to rank it, because I think it's important for us to know how you actually rank those projects as far as your need goes. Do you have more of a need to do those, I think it's 3 QSCB projects, or more of a need to have technology funding? Because one of the things that I've been a proponent for since I've been a commissioner is for us to start a line item for technology so that we can make a conscious effort to fund those technology needs, because I know that your charge as a system, in both systems, and the community college, is 21st century skills. And those are technology skills, and you've got to have the technology. I mean, one of the things you mentioned, your Microsoft Office, your students should be getting trained on 2010, and your staff should have that in order for them to get certified and get that accreditation. But yet, if you don't have the software available, you're teaching out-of-date software for students that are graduating and trying to get a job. So, that is important for you to have what you need as far as technology goes. And the flip side of that, I think to go back to what you said, when we talk to business and industry people, what are they talking about that the students are not getting in high school was those soft skills. Well, you don't get soft skills if you're at home doing an online class, because you're not interacting and you're not learning how to dress properly, how to do interviews, how to make a resume, how to present yourself, how to carry on a conversation with an adult. And if I think back to when I was 18 years old, scared to death to carry on a conversation with adults. And now, of course, trying to get students to understand that it's okay. We're not really as scary as they think we are. And I even think sometimes coming to present to the Board of Commissioners is a scary situation, because I've been in your shoes having to do that and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going up and asking for somebody to write a check. And it's, in a lot of cases, even as adults, it's very hard to ask people to give up their hard-earned money, even for good causes, such as public education. So, I think that we do need to look at those soft skills that need to be taught, and that only happens in the classroom when you're around people. I think that there was a bill introduced that said a proposed requirement of 1 art credit in order to graduate from high school. That we saw that in the email I think you sent to us today, which is kind of interesting to see that, we're looking, what are the different things that that adults think that our students need to be getting. So back to the issue at hand, which would be the money. Have you talked about that? What is your more pressing need?
And we do. We have, I think about 5 projects that we were not able to use QCS school construction bonds for. And we did submit a project list, I think, last week.
I sent that out to the board yesterday.
Okay. That lists our, kind of our critical projects from 2012, 2017. It totaled $33 million. It includes the new intermediate school, things like that. But it also included some things like you're speaking of, the HVAC controls at Fred L. Wilson, the HVAC controls at Forest Park, some other interior renovation at Woodrow Wilson, and some other what you would call, I guess, smaller projects, even though they're over $100,000. They're not small, but that's a tough question to answer because I have championed technology funding for a while, so it'd be hard pressed for me not to say that we didn't need technology funding. But being over the facilities also, I understand how important it is to maintain the controls and maintain the chillers and maintain the buildings, because if you do have one fail, it's hard to come up with that amount of money. So I'd have to probably say 1 and 1A on that if you would let me abide with that one.
Okay, I mean, that's what I was trying to figure out. I know that we did get that document, but I didn't remember, you know, laptops and iPads being on there, and it could have been on there and I just overlooked it. So that's why I wanted to make sure.
It may also depend on how accessible technology is to every student, because when the state required tests are required to be done online, we have to do that. Mindful of the fact the state doesn't give us any money for technology for these tests they require us to give online. So.
And I think, is it next year that at least
Correct.
CTE and I know about the EOCs, are they required to be online?
It's coming. That's what they're telling us.
And from, I guess, to answer the other question, the reason technology wasn't, we went more from a facility standpoint on that request and left the technology and those type fundings within our, just our regular capital request. So we can merge them together if you'd like us to, though.
Well, I just, you know, I mean, I think it's fine to have them separate, and I appreciate that in your presentation you pulled out the one-time money, because I think we do have, we're going to talk about that as we go through the budget process. Are there some projects that, with one-time money, that we can afford to do that maybe we can't do continuing items and commit for future years until we can get some better idea of how the budget's going to kind of work its way out and how the economy's going to go. But we do need to look at one-time thing. I know you're a huge proponent of technology and have mentioned that over and over again. So I just kind of wanted to see, didn't want to put you on the spot, but kind of get an idea of which side you were kind of leaning towards. So a little bit of both is what I'm hearing from you.
A little bit of both, I would have to say, yes.
All right, any other comments, questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Dr. Spalding, I hope you won't mind. Can we take a little break? Okay. Let's take a 15-minute break, commissioners. And I do want to mention that we do have some snacks provided for those here by the Extension and Community Association. And so if you want to help yourself, and then we'll come back in about 15 minutes. Thank you.